Okay. And you can hear me all right? Very good. See to it that you have a comfortable position. Close your eyes. And let's just take a few minutes together and just recognize what is here. And with that, I don't mean to analyze your mind. I don't mean to pay attention to the specific content of the mind. Just be aware of the activity itself. Recognizing thinking, recognizing emotional content, the sensations of the body. Just notice what is here in this moment. And how all these activities come, stay for a while and go. Sometimes they stay longer, sometimes it's real quick. Just be aware of whatever is here right now. And from this vantage point, from this observing, you can recognize that you can be this watchfulness, this awareness. It's not really like you becoming it. It's more like you notice that it's there. The trance of the ordinary life is the idea that you are in a situation, that your life is happening, unfolding in certain ways, and your opinions about it. But prior to all this, prior to your identification and your ideas of being a person, there is this deep recognition of the moment. It's not a philosophical aspect of you. It's not something you conjure or create. It is your nature. It's very natural. It is the spaciousness of being. And to the busy mind, it can seem like it takes effort to come to this place. It can seem like it takes certain circumstances. Being guided in a context like this, being some sort of meditation setting. But in actuality, this awareness is always there. You are just focused on other things. You just miss to recognize your innate nature. This is the beauty of meditation. Its accessibility. Is always. But if you're lost in the mind, you get lost in the mind's desires and you look outward for satisfaction. But the acceptance of this moment and the stillness that you are runs much deeper than any superficial desire and idea of satisfaction. In the beginning you might say that it feels nice and a bit peaceful to come back to this. But as you plunge into the depths of awareness, you will notice that it is everywhere, in everything, complete. It needs nothing, and nothing can take anything away from it. And if you don't touch thoughts, you will always come back to this. Sometimes the thoughts feel overwhelming, impenetrable. They just take your mind over. You're caught up in an emotional state, an idea state that you project onto everything. But still, even if you consider yourself being in that state, awareness is still there. Everything is coming and going in it. And with a simple question, who is this happening to? It's easy to come back. To contemplate on what this experience is one of the most beautiful things that can happen in the human experience. And when you start to get aware of your thinking and of your conditioning, you notice how much time you put into just trying to fix this moment. But in actuality, there is nothing that needs to be fixed. You are pure awareness. You're just happening in this moment. And your ideas of what the world should be and trying to bend it to your will always create a sense of separation and suffering. If you look at this moment, it is unavoidable to recognize that. all you have to do is to come back to just being instead of trying to become. And when you stop running around and start to come back to this, recognizing the awareness, you notice its expansiveness. You notice all the things that you have mistaken for happiness. The idea of excitement, the idea of wishing for something in the future. All these ideas that has nothing to do with real happiness. Happiness comes in this moment when you accept this moment as it is. Even if it seems uncomfortable. This is what life shows you right now. And you can choose the path of trying to avoid your emotions, whatever happens in your life, and run to pleasure again and again, trying to entertain your mind to stay away from all this. But the only thing it does is to prolong your suffering. And when you see it, there is no longer a choice. It is being with what is. That is the only choice, if you would like to call it that. And you're free to distract yourself, to do whatever you like. I'm not your authority. But if you're curious and want to know yourself, then look. Question. See what this moment is. Contemplate on the things that you think make you happy. And see if they actually do that. Contemplate on your desires. See if they are useless desires, or if they're desire for truth, awareness, being. And then don't just create a loop, but draws you to freedom. To choose this path of direct experience is not the easiest thing that you can do in the human kingdom, but it is by far the most gratifying. your thoughts and your ego identity will have all kinds of reasons why to not pursue this. But if your heart is open and the longing for freedom is there, you might hear a yes despite of the mind's no. What a privilege. What great fortune to hear the teachings of being. You can gently open your eyes. Move your body if you need to. Stretch out your legs. I think that many people underestimate the power of contemplation, of asking the right questions. And they can be super simple. They can be questions like, what is true? What do I know to be real? What is happiness? What is freedom? What is meditation? What is the practice? What is the sadhana? It can be a good exercise to just try to formulate things. To take a piece of paper and write all the things that you know are real. Can be very short text. Look at everything and see, am I just speculating or guessing? Or what do I know? So you might start with, I am. Okay. There is some sense of being as I am. So this I know. And then you're right. I am the body. Do I know that I am the body? Or is the body experienced in awareness? Can the body be observed? And then suddenly you're not so sure. And the ideas that you have that come and come again, do you know for certain that they are you? Even if they say, use your name, say I, me, mine. you notice sometimes that they seem too crazy, so you don't believe them, even though they say, I, me, mine. And suddenly that there is an uncertainty. This uncertainty is what most people dread. It is what they are afraid of. It is why they do all the things, why they distract themselves, because they do not want to be with uncertainty. And especially not an existential uncertainty. And I think that makes most people turn away from really looking into spirituality. But everyone who dares to look reaps the benefit of awareness. As soon as identification with the body, with thoughts, start to cease, there is a sense of transparency. There's a sense of movement. There's a sense of cracks in the painting, of the trance being broken. The mind starts to have moments of clarity. You experience a very pure beingness while just doing certain things. And you feel the freedom that comes with that. Even if everything in your life feels confined, even if your situations seems unbearable, this freedom is still there. It's such a strange paradox. The ego can be completely convinced that there is no space for me, that my life is too cramped, there's too much. And yet, in a moment, it can feel expansive and spacious. I know that many of you have experienced this. And it is because we believe in things that are not real. And since it is normal to believe those things, most people accept it. And you also feel a little bit strange moving outside of that. And maybe you have ideas of how people are who move outside of that box. That they are religious fanatics or crazy in some sense, or have went too far, like you would say from a normal standpoint. And we have to understand that society is not created to make people happy and to know about their essential nature. Society is created in many ways to create good citizens that are productive and that can work well in a big machine. So it's on us to find out. And I know that it will be challenging in ways because it will feel like you go against what you have been given growing up. In certain ways you're going against society because it's so much built on progress. The idea of you go to first grade, to come to second grade, to come to third grade, and so on. And that there's It should be some kind of, it's like the rainbow and the gold at the end of it, that it should be some kind of reward. But it's just like the reward never comes. You work your life, and then the pension comes, and then you have your freedom. But 2 years before that, the body goes. There is no guarantees. There is no lifespan that is guaranteed. Life is not like that. It's irregular, and it just happens as it happens. And there are so many ideas of what is real, that we have a grasp of what is going on in the world from watching the news, all these crazy things. And there are so many collective ideas that people just follow. And we do things because we think that that is the right thing to do. We want to be on the right side of history, as some people say, all these things. But we don't even know who we are. We don't even know who is going to do what. We assume so much. And that's why contemplation is so important. And to just ask simple questions like, what is real? What is reality? What is a life of quality? And you might say that you don't have a belief, but most people have so many beliefs. And most people also confuse faith with belief, which are, I would say, almost opposites. It's like saying that opposites are the same word.
Faith with what?
Belief. They say, what belief are you associated with? Or what faith? They can just use those words like that. But belief is completely something of the mind, and faith is of the heart. And I know this life can be confusing because you try to do the right things. But for most people, they don't even know what that is. They just buy into other people's ideas that have an agenda, and they push that agenda, and you think that this is right. And a strange thing, when you really look, if you don't take sides, if you're not biased, is that you start to notice that sometimes darkness is perfect. It just brings out light. That the thing that you were dreading is the Savior. The experience itself is very complex. Super complex, actually. Okay. Avinasha, you turn on your microphone all the time. Okay. And most of us completely underestimate our relating to this experience, what that does. And we don't understand that that is everything. Whatever you think that you are is how you will interpret the world. If your heart is full of love, even if the world seems quite grim, you will say, at the foundation of everything there is love. You will look into someone's eyes, you see their fear and everything, but you know that behind all that is love. And this acceptance in your heart allows that person to also accept. This is why it's so beautiful to look at that. And why awareness seems like magic to us. How can certain spaces and certain individuals just exude so much stillness, so much peace? How is it possible? They don't have to say anything. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to fix you. And the deepest healing comes from that. It just automatically, with awareness itself, it just unfolds as it should. When sorrow needs to come, sorrow comes. When tears need to come, they come. When the release needs to come, it comes. All the movements. And we try in different ways to be still, quiet the mind, all this. And it's like a muddy glass that starts to settle, but you take a spoon and try to settle it quicker. It won't work. Cecilia writes a question. She says, Ramana talks about the heart as the I am, or even beyond that. Many people refer to the heart as a physical organ. Can you please talk a little bit about the heart from non-dual beingness? Yes. I refer to the heart also as being. Another word for beingness. I don't mean the physical organ in the body. It's very clear if anyone was confused about that. And this is one of my favorite books, The Heart of Awareness, Ashtavakra Gita. And it is just because we have two faculties, really. We have two things to listen with at the same time, you could say. Also talk with at the same time. Our listening can come from here. We can analyze things We can nod, we can understand things. Or we can listen here. And that is different. That's usually what I'm talking to. And the confusion is when it gets stuck here. Because beingness has this property of also understanding, but intuitive understanding. And it requires trust. And it can just go straight to the heart. And I know that many of you heard when I talked with Raya Krishna, for example, and he said that I just had lack of faith. And he didn't talk to my mind, because my mind said things before that. It had all kinds of concepts of what faith was and how religious it was. But when he said that, he talked to my heart. It went straight here. I understood that it was true. And whether I liked it or not didn't matter. And this is the beauty of the heart. Because the heart can digest things that the mind cannot digest. It can see truth when the mind says this or that, have stories, tries its things. And you recognize it. It feels like you have been bypassed in the process. You try to analyze and be alert about holding things in the right place, and you have the feeling that you are a person in control and all this, and suddenly someone just says something that completely bypasses that. And you get very unsure of where you are. And there is such beauty in this, because it just shows our true nature and how wisdom really works, that it can just be transmitted very deeply. And even if you have ideas that go against it, it doesn't matter. And I understand from the ego's point of view that it can feel very overwhelming to be spoken to in the heart. Some people say it's too much. I get scared. And it's just that whole idea of control, and that you are a person that is absorbing information somehow and digesting it at your own pace. But the heart is not like that. It doesn't care about time. It doesn't care about your agenda. It doesn't care if you like it or not like it. If the longing is there, it's like a reflecting mirror. It just sees itself. So what can it do? Can you avoid your mirror image? Trying to step quickly to the side. No, you cannot. It's already reflected. It's already done. There is no time. So the heart itself is non-dual. It is its nature. And this heart cannot be broken. And it's the source itself. It has no form. We point here, but that is just a symbol. That is just a sense that we have. And emotionally, the body exudes the sense of love from this part. When it cannot be expressed, you might have felt the tightness of this. So that's why we associate it with the feeling of love, feeling of heart. And in this space of the heart, when you recognize it, you can just sit there. It's softer than any meditation pillow. Restlessness can be experienced from the heart, but it never goes there. Tiredness, all kinds of things. But in the deep seat of the heart, there's just peace. Okay, any more questions? Yes.
I heard a really interesting podcast yesterday about with a neuroscientist who was studying cessation. I think it's a Buddhist term. He was also Buddhist actually, but it's when you sort of lose all sense of, or maybe you already know, but I didn't know the term before, when you just lose all sense of I. So even the sense I am just disappears into consciousness.
Yeah.
And he had recorded people in this state for a week, just not eating or sleeping, just in this state. And I realized that I think in myself, it's probably my ego looking for a sort of amazing experience. But I had one brief sense it was a while ago now, just of just questioning my beliefs. Like, am I the thing is, I think when I meditate, I often feel quite sort of rooted in my body, and it's just an assumption. Obviously, it's just something that's appearing in awareness. I understand this, and I did have on one occasion a sort of a sense of just letting go of that belief, and then just really kind of, I don't know, becoming something else. It didn't last very long, but I sort of, I think I'm probably sort of really like looking for an experience like that again. I think maybe I'm just looking for it as a way to help sort of reorganize my thinking about this kind of things. But I know while I'm saying it, I'm sort of also saying it just as a sort of admission of seeking. So I don't know if there's a question there, but maybe,
yes.
yeah.
And I just want to clarify that seeking itself is not a problem. The desire for freedom itself is actually very positive. That you long for this freedom is a great thing. But the idea that it's very specific and that it's, oh yes, the last time I had just eaten a watermelon and I sat like this, so I'm going to replicate that this time again, and I'm going to hold my focus first on my first chakra, and then you know, it's very easy that it becomes very specific, and that it's and all that you see are, yes, these tendencies are that shows me that I'm really dropping the ego in this. But the truth of it is that you have no idea how it happens. And the things that you think are non-spiritual in your practice could be the ones. For example, if you have suppressed a lot of anger in your life, and suddenly meditation starts to feel nice, you still feel very much identified with the body and thing, but it starts to be peaceful, and suddenly there just comes bursts of anger. These things can be the egoic mind letting go of those vasanas, and creates exactly the space that is meant. But in the situation, you just feel like I'm getting it to be a very angry and a bit crazy person when it comes to that, because it is just starting to be expressed. So there are so many ways that the experience moves that we don't know. But when I started to practice non-dual meditation, I had moments of this complete going of the ego for long periods of time, and I just tried to again come back, and it just put me for a long while in a state of a little bit of an obsessed state with trying to get back to that state and trying to replicate it. And as soon as there were tendencies that showed that it was similar, that I had a similar experience, the mind went completely bananas and like, this is it, like that. And all these projections and expectations just, of course, creates a lot of separation. So it's of no help at all. It just makes you very separate as the seeker. So, and there is a balance with it, because also with this strong longing for this freedom comes that you go a bit crazy when it seems like it's coming. It's happening. And what will happen eventually is that the interest in an experience like that will completely subside. It will be completely uninteresting. Because you understand what you're looking for is not a deep intuitive thing, that awareness that you just want to see itself. Because then you suddenly make it into a thing. I want the thing. And you make a very strong I, and you make a very strong thing, and they should be combined somehow. You should have it. And all these things are also great things to contemplate on. To ask yourself questions about. Okay, who is the one trying to achieve this? What would that do? If I would get my moment of non-ego as a thing that I could hold, what would that mean? Is that experience real then? What is it that makes that impossible? Who is the holder of that? Who is the winner of the prize? Because you also have the experience that there is no one in that moment. The moment that seems very profound. In that moment, the experience there is that there is no one at the center of it. It is just happening. I think all these things are valid questions to have. Where am I going with it? If I would given the letting go of the ego as a prize, how would that work? Who is achieving it? Who is putting the metal? Because that is just how the ego understands things. It thinks that it will get something. And we can talk about surrender and all this as much as we want, but people still think, I'm going to get something. There is a prize in the end. Rumi has a beautiful poem of this. He's longing for I don't remember it exactly, of course, because I'm terrible with those things. But he's longing for the beloved, he calls it. Awareness itself. And he hears God's voice, and it says, you can run to the beloved and get your kiss, but that means giving up your life. And he said, I would still run. It will cost your life, this kiss. And this is the problem with the ego, trying to go somewhere. Because the ego won't go. Yes, it's a question from Rebecca.
But that's just it, isn't it? It's like the longing to dissolve. It's like somehow there's something that knows it just needs to not be there. Like, right?
Yes, and there's a lot of confusion, I think, about these feelings of it. Because you can also in meditation experience this deep beauty, and you can hear your inner voice say, I don't care if I would die in this moment. And that, for most people, is such a dark thing. But that just shows this symbolic death of the ego. It has nothing with killing the body or anything like that. It's just a longing for the peace of being. Because the ego lives in the domain of becoming. It wants to become enlightened. It wants to become happy. It wants to become fulfilled. It wants all these things. But peace is not found in the domain of the ego. And the more you fiddle with it, the clearer it gets. The more you try with different strategies, and you try in different ways you try to adapt to the ego somehow, and it never gives any fulfillment. It always wants to continue. It wants more, it wants the next thing. It's never fulfilled. Because there is a sense of being separate. And in that sense lies the nature of not being fulfilled. And this very in a sense, very healthy longing for just being united with everything is, of course, very close to death. Because it is the ego cannot follow in that, cannot come with. So that you can have all kinds of feelings of it. There can come a very strong sense of loneliness in it, because it feels also like you're leaving everything behind. You're leaving the known behind. And these are not strange things to feel in your practice. They are quite normal, actually.
I liked what you shared in a different session about the ball in the water.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is something in me that knows it wants to let go completely
Mm.
and just like release all the tears, the grief.
Mm.
Yeah. Without getting caught in a story of what the grief means or
Yes,
so forth.
yes, without analyzing it.
Yeah, it's really hard to not desire that.
Yeah, yes. Because it lies in its nature because as soon as you, all your life, you try to reach all the things that you want. And suddenly you discover spirituality. And then you want to reach the goals of spirituality. I think that is very natural. I think it's almost unavoidable, I would say. And if you have spiritual experiences, you want those again. All those things. But and I think that the frustration of being with those desires for those spiritual experiences, where you come to a point that there's no point in me doing this, I give up. And there is the real opening. But you cannot fake the giving up. You cannot say, I want to surrender. I'm surrendering. But you don't have the real, you're not with it really. You're just trying something, another strategy of the mind, trying to be a surrenderer, again becoming something.
And I think sometimes I can experience an inverted ego that just wants to give up or
Yes.
wants to stop suffering. But it feels like there is like with depression or like with these like struggling states of being that just want it to end.
Mm.
But it's the flame. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yes, but it's hope and hopelessness. They are part of the same coin. The two sides of the same coin. They are the ego saying, yes, finally I found something. This is going to make me happy. Meditation is going to bring me peace. And when it doesn't seem to show that in your practice, you say, oh, it's worthless. Nothing works, or I am worthless, or whatever it is. So this is just the ego again, playing with those, back and forth with the idea of time.
I'm afraid I notice fear becomes another thing like that for me, another way I fail, or another, So this is a topic I'm grateful for,
Mm. And it's so easy to run from one extreme to the other, to just play with these two sides of the coin, because that's what the ego says that you have to play with. It loves this. It's either black or white. Are you with me or against me? All these ideas come very much from the egoic mind, because the heart has a completely different view of it. It can just embrace everything. It can just be open to anything to happen. And that is so vastly different from just two options. And the way that the ego tries to fake these feelings of freedom is that it says, you have 17 options. It just want to create a larger number. But it is not free with 17 options. The real freedom is anything can happen. That is so enormously more space than 17 options.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
Just having to feel it.
Yes.
Okay. It sounded more profound in my head.
And sometimes it lands and you just have to be with it. And you will notice that when it really settles, some things, some of the old tendencies around it they can still play a little bit. Thoughts around it can be like, they can still try, but they start to have no real, they lose the power. And you can see the tendency, the old tendencies of the mind going there again, trying, making options, and you come back to, oh, but this is nothing. There's nothing here. You notice how the words have lost their power because there's no longer a belief in them. And this is in the moment we feel like we have received some wisdom and it has manifested in us somehow, and we don't understand that in that moment there is more space. There is surrender. Because it's not always as we think. You have an idea in your mind how surrendering looks like, what it looks like, what is going to happen in surrender. And often the idea is that nothing, surrender is not something being added. Right? Surrendering, we talk about peeling away all these things, right? So the idea becomes, nothing can be added for me to surrender. And suddenly you receive some part that feels like a vocal wisdom or something, and that peels it away. Or you do something, you sing with all your heart, or you do something that feels like more like in the relative world, it feels like a doing. But suddenly, that is what peels it away. And it's the same with the inquiry. You take something, you bring it to this moment. As my guru so beautifully said, you have a thorn in your finger, you take another thorn to remove that thorn, and then you throw them both away. And this is what we do. it can feel like it goes through doing, but the result is peace. And that is all that matters. Your idea of how it should happen is of no consequence. And you don't know. Be very sure that you don't know. And for some people it really helps to just embrace uncertainty. To be with the not knowing.
Can I also share something?
Yes.
Thank you. I love the subject of today. Thank you very much. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you very well.
Good. So it's so interesting because on this topic of like searching for experience and profound spiritual aha moments and even enlightenment, right? I think this was maybe a while ago you said you were talking about, we think that it's going to be like this pivotal moment when it happens and then, everything will change. But the funny thing is like, it's you don't notice when it happens. And that whatever shift it is, you don't really notice when or how or what exactly changed. But
Yes.
it's just that some things are not resonant anymore, and there's like for example, I started 2 different courses this fall, just like a tryout, right? And I was sitting there, and at both of them, the first sessions, I was like, this is not for me. Like this is the exact same pursuit that I have been on before, and I have no reason to pursue this. There is no one pursuing it. There's nothing to pursue.
No.
Do you understand? And it was very like, okay. And then for some reason, it happened once again. Maybe I needed to like figure it out twice, like in my mind. But then I was like, okay, I get it now. It's like I don't need to do this.
Yes. And you will be drawn to the same behavior perhaps again.
Yeah.
Because there is some belief still lingering that thinks that there is something to gain from this. And as soon as there is some relationship to it, there will be an interest in it. But as soon as it is revealed and you get to sense it in the moment, you feel like this is completely uninteresting.
Yeah.
And some of these things are more stubborn because they're also related often to our fears. And it could just be simple things like, yes, I have to be more like this to be liked, or whatever it is. There can be really, really simple, small things.
Yes, to me it was that actually. To me it was like to have a belonging and to be a good girl, a good person, and exactly like you said. Yes, thank you.
And so these things can and they can go quite deep, especially the one being accepted. Being accepted by some kind of authority is a very strong one for many people. Usually that authority is a parent, but it can also be someone that is a symbol for that parent or similar. We have so many ideas also what is right and wrong that we make. There's so much talk about making mistakes. But mistakes, in a way, are beautiful because they can show you how you're not in line with what is. And if you just do things that you're really good at and that is really easy to be accepted around, not much might happen. That might actually be the worst trap. To never challenge yourself. So when you go out of your way to try things, and even if it feels a bit uncomfortable and you try to settle with some emotions that you have, that the failure of it is what can create some real knowledge of it, where there can come wisdom. So don't be afraid of failing.
Yes, thank you so much. And also to admit that it was not for me, or it was a failure. Like, that's also a big thing, because especially in Sweden or in spiritual communities, there's so much ego in being like, meek and humble, and what the idea of being humble is. And there's just a lot of, excuse my language, but crap there. Like, it's just so much about humility that it's not real humility.
Yes.
What is real humility, right?
Yes. Yes. It's very easy to have an idea of how to behave. I just read in my guru's book, these question answers with Swami Shashwat, and someone asks, "Is it okay for the guru to be angry? Can a real guru be angry?" And he, of course, answers, "Yes, when it's needed, but it never sticks." And and it comes from love. But the idea that someone who is very peaceful is not allowed to be angry, if you go with that, then you suppress all your anger, because you think that I'm going to be spiritual. I'm going to be in a certain way. And this is not good. The more natural we can be with all our feelings, all our expressions, all our desires, because when we mark them as bad and not wanted, we make them stronger, and we make them into something that they're not.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else with a question?
It's not a
Yes.
question. It's not a question, but I also want to say thank you. It's just so it's so good. I always ask a question when I come to Satsang, and it's always so good to just when you just see the question for what it is. As soon as you start talking, as soon as I say the question to you, I start to see. It's so useful, this Satsang. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Okay. So let's close today by singing let's sing to Radha. Jai Jai Shri Radhe, 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 Jai Jai Shri Radhe. May all beings find peace. Find the possibility to follow their longing, to be absorbed in the awareness that they are. May everyone find peace. this weekend, but the weekend after. If anyone have missed it, I have 5 sessions that weekend here, and we will do all kinds of beautiful practices. There will be Satsangs 2 evenings, and we will do active meditation, we will do mantras, we will sing bhajans. So you can sign up on the site, and please do so, because there's also food and there's limited space for the active meditation and so on. It would be lovely to see you all, of course. And if you can, give a donation. Yes, and that weekend is also on donation. And you can you don't have to attend all the 5 sessions. You can attend one, or however you like. Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you.